It is a journey through the Bible with Mukhwana Isaac. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Yesterday, we saw the fall of the kingdom of Israel, and today we bring our focus to the fall of the kingdom of Judah. Many of the kings of Judah were no better than, of course, the kings of Israel. They married pagan princesses and also worshipped pagan gods. Now, instead of trusting in God as they had been told to do by the prophets, they worshipped and hoped to have success by making agreements with the Assyrians and Egyptians. This was very terrible. King Achaz, for example, in about 736 to 724 BCE, refused to listen to the prophet Isaiah, who told him not to make friends with the pagan Assyria against Syria and Israel. Now, Achaz was saved from the two enemies, but afterwards had to serve and pay money each year to Assyria. But there were two kings who really were faithful to God. These were Ezekiah and Josiah. They destroyed the idols that had been put up, yes, brought back the worship of the one true God and celebrated the Pascha as God had commanded and instructed the Hebrews long before. But after the death of Ezekiah and Josiah, the people fell back into evil ways. To punish them, God took away his protection. And in 612 BCE, already 110 years after the northern kingdom of Israel had been destroyed by the Assyrians, the Babylonians conquered Nineveh, the capital of Assyria. The Egyptian pharaoh Necho decided to help the Assyrians. To do this, he had to pass through Judah. Josiah, the king of Judah, tried to stop the Egyptians from passing through his land, but was killed in battle. The Pharaoh later made Joachim, a son of Josiah and a friend of the Egyptians, king of Judah. Josiah had done much to bring the Jews back to God, but under his son Eliakim, Pharaoh Necho changed his name to Joachim or Joachim, Jehoiakim. Yes, idolatry began again. The Assyrians and the Egyptians were defeated at they were defeated at Kachemish by the Babylonians in about BCE 605. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, was very powerful, but Jehoiakim thought he could play with him. Jehoiakim was friendly towards the Egyptians, and the Egyptians were unfriendly towards Babylon. Jehoiakim foolishly rose up against Babylon. He died while Jerusalem was being defended. His son Jehoiakim, a boy of 8 years, was made king. But in about 598 BCE, yes, Nebuchadnezzar captured Jerusalem. And he took, of course, the younger king who was just about 8 years, the administrators, the nobles, and craftsmen. In other words, the cream of the population, yes, into exile in Babylon. So, this man Nebuchadnezzar made Zedekiah king of Judah. Zedekiah did not listen to the prophet Jeremiah. He also rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar. The people were again unfaithful to God in following pagan customs. God sent many prophets to save his people, but the people mocked at them, punished, followed quickly and severely. The Babylonian army attacked Jerusalem after 8 months. They broke through the walls of the city and captured it in 587 BCE. The defenders, weak from lack of food and rest, could defend no more. You see, when you read the prophet Jeremiah, one time when he was arrested, um, not even arrested, did something with the person he was moving with. They came, he was tied, and asked this person to break the two blocks. They were demonstrating what was going to happen to them, how God was going to use Nebuchadnezzar, whom they trusted, to put them down. And so they were taken into exile. This was the second group to go to Babylon from Judah, and Jerusalem was completely destroyed. Yes, the walls of the city were pulled to the ground. The temple place and the rest of the city were burnt. The temple treasures of gold and silver, were taken to Babylon. The Ark of the Covenant was lost. Judah was no more. After the fall of Jerusalem, the people of Judah were split into three groups. One group, about 40,000, remained in Judah. They were mainly peasants and shepherds. We know very little about them, except that they have lived a very hard life, open to the attacks of wandering tribes. A second group went to Egypt and lived just as the Egyptians did, and were no longer a separate nation as the Hebrews had been formerly when in Egypt under Joseph. A third group, the more intellectual people of Judah, were those taken off into captivity in Babylon. They were about 30,000 people. Now, it was as if the history of Israel had begun all over again. They had left their first country of captivity, Egypt, and had become a free nation of their own land. God had made them his people and given them a country. But now Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed. The kingdom was no more. A new captivity had begun, not in Egypt this time, but in Babylon. This brings us to the end of today's episode. I have been Mukhwana Isaac with a journey through the Bible, that people have suffered. They have done everything to God, and that is what has happened. What next? In our next episode, we shall see God is sending his prophets to speak for him and to make his will known to his disobedient people. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Be blessed. We link up.